Hi folks, welcome to another GOTR or Gourmet on the Road update, and we are here at an iconic establishment in Bengaluru. This is an establishment that's buzzing every single day of the year, every single hour of the day, from the time that they open at 9 a.m. till they close at 11 p.m. And it is said that Bengaluru, or sometimes even the world, converges in on this place. We are sitting at Koshy's Parade Cafe, or what is popularly known as Koshy's. When you step into this restaurant, you're actually stepping into a glorious time in Bengaluru's history, and that's really the feeling that you get. Before I tell you about what I tasted here at Koshy's, let me remind you that we're going to be addressing a couple of comments in this GOTR update and also doing a couple of shout outs to viewers who have written into us. So coming back to what we're doing at Koshy's, we just tasted the enormous breakfast spread. Well, Koshy's is a large menu and I'm told about 900 odd dishes on the menu. But we are here to taste the breakfast dishes at Koshy's. So what did we taste for breakfast? Well, we tasted their toasts. Their toasts here are very popular, so we tasted 3 or 4 of them. We tasted the mushroom toast, we tasted the tomato cheese toast, we tasted the baked beans on toast, and the baked beans they prepare from scratch here, and also that delicious chicken liver on toast. Where is breakfast without eggs? So we had to taste eggs. We tasted the Spanish omelette, a loaded meaty omelette, and then we also tasted the Mr. K's Big Easy Breakfast, which was again an interesting, savory, meaty breakfast. And amongst the other dishes that we tasted, we also tasted the legendary Appam and Stew here. Now, what was special about the Appam and Stew that we tasted was the fact that we were served the Appam and Stew on a Thursday. Appam and Stew at Koshy's is a Sunday tradition. When you come here on a Sunday at 9 a.m., even before the gates open, you will find people waiting outside to be let in for their Sunday ritual of Appam and Stew, and a lot of them do their Sunday morning church service and then come right here for that Appam and Stew, and we were fortunate to taste that on a Thursday today. So there's a delicious episode of Gourmet on the Road Breakfast at Koshy's that's coming up soon, so do stay tuned to Food Lovers TV for that. Now, to address a couple of queries that we've received from some of our viewers. So this is a query that we've received from Yashas Tejnath, who writes in response to our Vidyarthi Bhavan video. He says, this was yet another excellent video from you. I was curious to know the reasoning when you deduct few points for a dish. What are your parameters when you rate a dish? Well, Yashas, thank you for this question. For those of you who've not seen Vidyarthi Bhavan video yet, I'm going to put a link right here. Do take a look at the video. And responding back to Yashas, a few days ago, I put out a Q&A, and in this Q&A, I talked specifically about how I rate a dish and my reasoning for doing so. So I'm going to put a link to the Q&A right here, so do take a look at it. So to respond very quickly to how I review a dish, well, I review a dish on the basis of my palate. I've spent many years in the business tasting food, and so when I review a dish, I do so on the basis of what that dish does to me on my palate. When I'm tasting 6 or 8 dishes, there are some dishes that are sublime, there's some dishes that are technically perfect, there's some dishes that appeal a lot to my palate. So typically those dishes get a high rating, and there are some dishes that perhaps do not shine as much, and therefore the rating also reflects the same. Now, when it comes to the basis for my rating, and I've said this earlier in my Q&A video, if you find a dish that I've rated as 9 or 10, well, that would make it a must-try dish at that establishment. If you find a dish that's rated at 7 or 8, well, that's a good enough dish to be tried. And if you find a dish that's rated 6 or below, well, it perhaps means that that dish didn't do much for me. So that's typically how I rate, how I evaluate a dish. Going back to another query that I received from Samuel Johanan in response to the Sai Sangeet video, I'm going to put a link to that video right here. He says your narration was excellent and was fun to watch. However, how are you able to eat so much food? I'm a little bit jealous. Well, Samuel, yes, there's a lot of food that you will see on my table when we're filming an episode of Gourmet on the Road, but I'm not eating all those dishes down to the last bite. Sometimes I'm just tasting 1/4 of the dish, sometimes I'm tasting 1/3 of the dish, sometimes half, and on those rare occasions when I really like that dish, perhaps a little more than half. So despite doing only tasting and not finishing on the dishes, there's still a fair amount of food that I consume. But what I try and do is, before and after the period that I'm tasting, I typically would go very easy in terms of eating or drinking, and that's how I'm able to manage. I've also put up a short segment on this in a Q&A where I've touched upon it briefly. I've got a link to that video right here, so if you'd like to take a look, you can look at it. Thank you for that query, Samuel. A couple of shout outs now. One is to Mohammed Arif, who responds to our Fava Bistro video. I hope you've got that video. If not, I've got a link right here for you to take a look at the Fava Bistro video that was uploaded just recently. Mohammed Arif says the quality of your videos are top notch. I've been watching food videos on YouTube for a long time, and I think you're right up there with the Food Ranger. Well, Mohammed, thank you very much for your faith and those kind words that really made our day. Well, there's a lot of work that goes into the videos that we produce, right from the time that we shoot to when we edit. The names that you mentioned are certainly right up there, and I think we still have a long way to go before we get there. But the one thing I can promise you is that we try very hard. We try very hard in the kind of content that we produce, and we also make sure that this content is produced with a lot of integrity and honesty. So thank you once again, Mohammed Arif. Do stay tuned to Food Lovers TV. Another shout out goes to Murli Krishnan, who responded to our Vidyarthi Bhavan video again. He says this blogger is really professional and concentrates more on the positive aspects. The coverage is good and not in excess or less, comparable to the high budget Western food bloggers. The BGM and slick editing makes it more interesting. Well, thank you very much, Murli, for noticing that. Yes, a lot of effort does go into our videos, and we do so to ensure that you find it an entertaining and interesting watch. So thank you folks once again for all your love, for all your comments, and for all the wonderful things that you've had to tell us at Food Lovers TV. Keep watching, do share the videos with your friends, families and loved ones, and help us grow the Food Lovers TV community. Until the next time, happy eating or drinking as the case may be. Cheers.